Greetings, fellow Bible readers. Welcome to week 25 of our 2016 read through of the Bible. This week we continue the book of Psalms. As we've seen in previous weeks, this book of the Bible gives us a wonderful picture of our Savior Jesus in various places. This week, though, we want to especially note the fact that the book of Psalms, in many ways, captures the emotional ups and downs in the life of the believer. That it is a very personal book in a sense. So let's keep that in mind as we talk about the readings for each day of the week. On day 1, we focus on Psalms 57 through 63. And as we look at this section, what you'll want to pay attention to, especially as we start to make things personal, is look at the headings to the Psalms. I had mentioned in a previous video that those headings are inspired. They contain not guesses about when these Psalms were written, but actual facts about when they're written. And you'll notice that there are a number of Psalms that in this section that have headings that relate biographical information about the life of David, when in David's life these Psalms were written. What's very interesting is that if you remember back to those events from 1st and 2nd Samuel, the Psalms give you a lot of insight into the emotional state of David, what was going through his heart and his mind as he faced these situations. And it's very helpful for us as believers because A, it helps us to see David as a very human figure, someone that we can relate to because he reacts much the same way we would in a lot of situations. And B, the other benefit is that it helps us to see ourselves in the psalm. Maybe we aren't in the same situations David was, but we may find ourselves at times in situations where we can relate to the problems and the challenges that he was facing. On day 2, we take a look at Psalms 64 through 68, and you want to pay special attention to Psalm 67. There in that psalm, we have a mini commentary on the blessing that we use at the end of our services. The Lord bless you and keep you, so on. As you read that psalm, just think about it, and I think you'll see some interesting explanation of what that blessing is really talking about. Then on day 3, we look at Psalms 69 through 72. Psalm 69, the first of those psalms, is a messianic psalm. And yet what's interesting is the way that this messianic psalm is very relatable to the life of believers, that Christians at times feel very much the way that Jesus felt. Maybe you've felt the same way that you see Jesus expressing himself in that psalm. Then on day 4, we look at Psalms 73 through 77. And the first and the last Psalms in that section are really worth noting. Psalm 73 deals with a question that believers have struggled with throughout history and at various times. And it's the question of, if there is a God, and he does love his people, why at times does it seem like the wicked do so well in this life and believers have a hard time of it? Why does it seem like in this life God isn't always fair? And Psalm 73 addresses that, and not only addresses it, but also expresses the frustration that believers do sometimes feel about that. Then in Psalm 77, we see the believer struggling with the problem of being in a situation where you pray to the Lord, and the Lord seems to be silent. He seems to be ignoring you. And this psalm does a good job of expressing the challenge that the believer feels in that situation and also pointing to the promises of God. Then on day 5, we look at Psalms 78 and 79. These two psalms give us an appreciation for all that history that we were reading earlier in the year. They draw on that history as a source for worship and praise of God. And so a beautiful example, especially in Psalm 78, of taking Bible history and making it sing. Then on day 6, as we look at Psalms 80 through 86, we just get a nice variety of different things, and there's nothing a whole lot that we're going to pull out there, but just kind of a nice section of the book of Psalms that captures a lot of different things from life. And then on day 7, we look at Psalms 87 through 91. And Psalms 88 and 89 are a pair of beautiful messianic psalms, and Psalms 90 and 91 are a wonderful pairing of psalms that really complement each other. Psalm 90 is written by Moses, and some Bible scholars have had the suspicion that even though there's no heading on Psalm 91 identifying the author, that perhaps Moses wrote that one as well because they fit together so nicely in thought and in focus. And that's because these two Psalms, 90 and 91, they focus on contrasting the eternal nature of God with the fleeting nature of man. And Psalm 90 emphasizes more the law aspect of that comparison, and Psalm 91 focuses more on the gospel aspect of that comparison. So keep that in mind as you read those Psalms. That's all for this week. We'll see you next